Neuroplasticity is the way the brain changes throughout our lives to adapt and learn and sometimes even recover from injury or illness. And it's a really exciting and new area of science. And when we combine mindfulness with the concept of neuroplasticity, it can be extremely powerful. And we are going to look at this in more detail. Over the past few decades, as research into mindfulness has grown, so too has the recognition of its link with neuroscience. And many researchers have been exploring the impact that mindfulness-based practices can have on the brain. It has chemical, structural, and functional changes that can be made as a result. So first, before we look at neuroplasticity in more detail, let's differentiate between the brain and the mind. So although we tend to use these two terms interchangeably, they actually mean very different things. So the brain is a physical and biological structure. It is the portion of the central nervous system that is located in the skull. But our mind, on the other hand, is really an abstract concept, and it's used to characterize our thoughts and feelings, our subjective states, and self-awareness. I've always said that the coolest thing about the brain is that it can think about thinking. And so what is neuroplasticity? Well, the National Library of Medicine defines it as the ability of the nervous system to change its activity in response to intrinsic or extrinsic stimuli by reorganizing its structure, function, or connections. And so this basically means that our brains have the ability to change itself continuously throughout our lifespan. And this makes it really interesting to think about how certain activities or exercises can lead to changes in our brains. Just like physical exercise can lead to changes in our body, the same can happen with our brain. And when we talk about intrinsic or extrinsic stimuli, we are talking about things that are internal to the body, like our own thoughts and feelings. Those are intrinsic, or extrinsic stimuli. So our environment and the changes that we might experience externally. So it's pretty interesting because that means that mindfulness can actually change the brain's structures. And this is why it has been proven to be so effective. And mindfulness leverages this ability by encouraging intentional shifts in things like our attention, our awareness, and our emotional regulation. So through consistent practice, we can reshape our neural networks in our brain that can actually lead to improved well-being, better emotional control, and better or enhanced cognitive functioning. So let's look at some key concepts associated with neuroplasticity. So as I was talking about, number one, changes in neural pathways. Mindfulness practices such as meditation involves sustained attention and focus. And that prolonged focus can lead to changes in neural pathways, and it can strengthen existing connections. So, for instance, areas of the brain associated with attention and emotional regulation, like the prefrontal cortex, it can become more active and interconnected through mindfulness practices. And so this rewiring supports improved attention and control and emotional resilience. The next thing is stress regulation. Chronic stress can lead to negative changes in the brain's structure and function. So mindfulness practices have actually been shown to reduce the size of the amygdala, and that is the part of the brain that's responsible for our fight or flight response. And it can increase the volume of the hippocampus, which is involved in learning and memory. And these changes are associated with better stress regulation and reduced reactivity to stressful situations. That leads us to emotional regulation. Mindfulness encourages observing emotions without immediately reacting to them. And this practice can modify neural circuits that are involved in those emotional responses, right? This is part of emotional intelligence. And this allows for just a better regulation of emotions. Mindfulness can help to do that. Habitual behavior and addiction. We know neuroplasticity plays a role in breaking habit patterns and addictive behaviors. And mindfulness helps individuals become more aware of their automatic reactions and things like cravings and things that we get really obsessive with. And it does that by increasing awareness and also by using techniques that help us to maybe sit on those cravings or impulses without acting on them. And new neural pathways can form and weaken the previous. So very powerful stuff. Learning and memory is the final one, and mindfulness practice involves sustained attention and active engagement with the present moment. And that kind of focused attention supports learning and memory processes. Like I said, that is why it is linked with increased academic performance. And so strengthening those pathways that are related to attention and memory can have positive effects on cognitive function. That means that we study better, not harder. We study better, we work more efficiently, and just overall great effects on how we perform day-to-day activities due to improved cognitive functioning.